Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf, Zevachim Peches. We begin at the Mishnah, 7 lines off the top, connecting to yesterday's discussion, where we learned that klei sharis, right, the containers, the vessels which are meant to contain material which are destined for the Mizbeach, these kelim have the ability to be mekadesh their content, to elevate them to a higher level, so that they attain inherent kedushas haguf, and if something should go wrong, you can't just redeem them. They're inherently kodesh. You have to dispose of them properly. You have to burn the material, etc. Now, in general, we have two categories of kelim. Those which are meant to contain liquid materials, like, for instance, says Rashi, dam, yain, or shemen, blood of the carbon, wine, or oil meant for the mizbeach, and you have klei yavesh, kelim which are meant to contain, dry material, flour, etc. Says the Mishnah, each kli can only be mekadesh material which is meant for that kli. Klei halach, containers for liquid, mekachin halach could be mekadesh liquids, blood, wine, or oil. Umidos yavesh, containers meant to measure dry material like flour, mekachis is hayavesh, sanctify only dry material. Hen kli halach mekadesh is hayavesh, right? So a kli halach cannot be mekadesh yavesh, and vice versa. V'lo yavesh mekadesh halach likewise. A kli meant for yavesh cannot be mekadesh lach. By the way, Rashi points out why this switch in phraseology. We begin klei halach, kelim for lach, and then we switch to midos yavesh. In describing the containers for yavesh, we switch to midos, containers which are sort of measuring cups. Why not stick with the same? So Rashi says because actually there are no plain yavesh containers. You only have two kelim meant for yavesh, which are both measuring cups. One contains an isaron meant for the standard mincha, which has a isaron of flour, and one is chatzi isaron, a half a isaron, which is meant for the two halves of the Kohen Gadol's mincha brought daily. Okay, in any case, you can't switch it over. You can't put liquid content into klei yavesh and vice versa. It's not going to have the same effect. Continues the Mishnah. Klei hakodesh. What about these kelim shenikfu that got damaged? They got a puncture. Can they still be mekadesh their content? Well, it depends if they're still functioning in a manner which is reminiscent of its primary function. If you can still do with them, use them for a similar function as they were functioning until now, as they were doing when they were complete and undamaged. So if they could perform a similar function, okay, they're still in business, mekachin, then yes, they will still be mekadesh or content. But if they're disabled from their earlier function, even if you use them as a bottle cap or a cover, they lost their power of kiddush, eid mekachin. V'kulan, all these kelim eid mekachin al b'kodesh could only be mekadesh their content if they are present b'kodesh, says Rashi in the Azor, the Beis Hamidrash, in their home domain. Omar Shmuel, although the Mishnah says that klei halach cannot be mekadesh yavesh, loishanu, that's only correct elamidos, containers which are meant to measure. Rashi brings there were actually 7 liquid measuring cups in the Beis Hamidrash, hin, chatzia hin, etc. Since these are meant to measure liquids and cannot be used to measure dry, it's a different system, right? They were only designated, and Rashi says, anointed with the holy oil for this purpose. The purpose of measurements, purpose of medida, that you can't cross-function them. They're meant to measure liquids. They can't be used to contain dry. It's a different function. Okay, so that's only by midas, al mizrakis. But in terms of a regular container, meant to contain liquids, not necessarily measure the liquids. A mizruk is meant to contain blood, wine. In that case, mekadesh, they can be mekadesh, even dry material placed inside them. Rashi says, just as they work for lach, they will also have the same effect by Yavish. How do I know this is true? Shenamah, we have a pasuk. When the Nesim would bring their offerings during the celebrations of the Chanukas HaMishkan, the inauguration of the Mishkan, it says that they bought the a mizrak. Okay, they brought these containers, and it says Shnei Malaim Soilis Blula Bashem Mincha. These containers, which are meant for a mizrak, is meant for liquids. Right, so there's a karas kesef in the pasuk, a mizrak kesef. It was filled with what? Shnei Malaim Soilis, flour. Apparently, these containers can serve even flour. Oma leirav acham difti. I have a question, he says, l'Ravina. How could you prove anything from there? Mincha? You're proving from a mincha? Which you're assuming is considered dry material, which was placed in a liquid container? Mincha lachi. Actually, a mincha is mixed with oil. It's a moist entity, it's not dry. Hamar Lacey says, it's inevitable that within this mix is going to be, some, pockets of purely dry material. And the fact that the kli can contain and be mekadesh that proves our point that a kli halach can be mekadesh yavish as well. Another answer to your question would be, although it has some moisture, but relative to blood, wine, oil, which is the standard material placed in a liquid container, relative to that, it's certainly considered dry, right? A mincha, mix, legabe dam, vis-a-vis blood, which is truly liquid, kiyavish dami, is considered dry, and still it works. Apparently, what we're saying is true. Amar Shmuel. Further says Shmuel, regarding the ability of a kli shoris to mekadesh its content. Kli shoris in mekachin. There were going to be three conditions for it to work. In mekachin el shleiman, the kli could only be mekadesh shleiman. Rashi says as opposed to nikvu, it has to be undamaged. Okay, so it has to be complete, undamaged. In mekachin el malain only works if it's filled. Explains Rashi. What it means to say is like this: if you're filling it with flour, you have to bring the required amount. If it's an isarein, you have to have a full isarein in the container, etc., etc. You have to bring the required amount. But if it's missing the shear that you need for that respective mincha or carbon, then it's not really suitable for the kli. It's not meant for the mizbech at this early stage, so the kli is not mekadesh it. Furthermore, ein mekashin al mitoichen. It only works if it's mitoichen, inside the kli itself. And soon we'll explain what this is coming to exclude. Okay, three conditions. The kli has to be a properly functioning kli, no punctures, no holes, with the required amount of content, and provided it's inside, the interior of the kli. Va'amrila, there's another version of this halacha, with a slight difference here. Ein mekashin el shleiman, it has to be undamaged. Umaleim, filled. Okay, so far so good. Umibifnim. And it has to be mibifnim. What does mibifnim mean? Bifnim, says Rashi, means in the Beis Hamikdash. Right? Mibifnim be'azar. Maybe not. What's the difference between the first and second versions? The difference would be like this. Beirutze midas. You have some material that was heaped, right? So it's sort of over the top and resting on the sides, on the surface of the lip of this container, of this kli. So if you need mitaychan, as per the first version, you don't have it. Right? It's not technically inside. But according to the second version, that's not an issue, as long as it's being contained, with the kli. That's still considered within, the domain and covered by the kli and affected by it. Masisa Tana, in the Brisa actually, we have a list of all 4 conditions. Ein makashin el shleimin, umaleim, umitoichan, ubifnim. So according to the Brisa, all 4 conditions need to be met. The kli has to be complete, filled with the shear. The material has to be inside only, and of course only within the Beis HaMikdash. Amar Basi Amar B'Yechanan. When do we say that if it's only partially filled, it doesn't work? He has no intention of completing the required amount. But if he plans on adding, he's just pouring it in slowly, an ounce at a time. But he plans on completing the required shear that's needed for the carbon. Yeah, then that works. Rishon Kodesh. As the material goes in, a bit at a time, since it's slated for completion, then it works. So the Kedusha arrives even at this early stage, even before completing the shear. Tanya we find the same in the Brisa. Maleim, as the pasuk calls them, Maleim, the Kalim of Malay, Ein Maleim, Melash Leiman. Provided they have the complete shear. Amar Yesi, a masa. When do we say that's a requirement? Yeah, if he plans on stopping right here, it doesn't work. But if he's on the way to completing the shear, then every bit that comes in becomes Kaddish, Rishon Kaddish. Ein klei alach mekadosh. Amar Rav, v'tim Ravas. Although the Mishnah says you cannot use a liquid container for dry, etc., that's only in Mekach and Likarev. It doesn't generate a kedusha on its content to the extent that it would enable it for hakrava on the mizbeach. It doesn't get it to that point. For that you need the proper kli. Aval Mekach and Lipasul, but it does have some effect, some sanctification effect on the content, that it is now considered kedushas haguf, inherently kadosh. And if something goes wrong, right? Well, let's say it leaves the Beis HaMikdash, it becomes possible yaitse, just like any other carbon material. One more thing says Rashi: if something goes wrong, you can't just redeem it as though it's just monetarily kaddish. No, once it enters a kli sharis, even if it's the wrong kli sharis, it has now obtained kedushas haguf. It becomes inherently kaddish, and you have to treat it accordingly. Ikod the masni laha. Some applied this halacha just stated to a different case. There's a halacha in mevin menachos unisachim. The material that one offers as a carbon has to be edible to a Yisrael. Let's say it's asur b'hana. You can't bring it as a carbon. Rashi brings the pasuk mashki Yisrael. It has to be edible. It has to be mutter for us. Then we could offer it to Hashem, right? So you cannot bring a mincha, v'nesachim, u'minchas behemo, bikurim, all types of offerings, minamaduma. If your material has some truma mixed into it, which makes it inedible for a Yisrael, you can't bring it as a carbon. Of course, it goes without saying, if it's completely forbidden, of course you can't bring forbidden materials. Maybe like Kiddush. In fact, even if he did bring it, it doesn't become Kaddish. It doesn't work. On this Rab says, it doesn't become Mizbeach enabled, but it still attains some higher level of Kedusha, Lo Kidesh Likarev, Aval Kidesh Lipasal, but it becomes, it gets an upgrade to the extent that it becomes more susceptible, more sensitive and delicate, and as Rashi explained, Farshim explained, suppose a Tuvul Yaim, somebody who has a slight tumah, touches it, becomes puzzle. So to that extent, it did benefit from being put into a kli sharis. Continues the Gemara. So further on this topic of the Kli Sharas being mekadesh their content. Now we're going to speak about the actual rules and laws that apply to the Kli Sharas themselves and the Bigdei Kehuna as well. Tana Rabbanan. Klei kodesh shenikfu. Okay, so let's say the Kli got a hole. Do we repair a Kli in the Beis Hamikdash? The answer is no. Ein matichan oisin. You don't smelt the sides of the around the hole and repair the hole. You don't do that. Ve'ein masichan l'toichan eiver. Nor do you melt a little piece of lead into that hole and plug it up. You don't do that. And Rashi explains the reason for all this is because it looks like they're michzi ke'anius. It gives the impression of poverty. V'lav oirach ara. It's not covet. It's not respectful for the Beis Hamikdash. The Gemara later calls it ein anius b'makom ashirus. Beis Hamikdash is a place of a bracha, of ashirus. We don't conduct ourselves in a frugal manner in the Beis Hamikdash. Okay, so if it breaks, no repairs. You just dispose of it appropriately. Likewise, nifgimu, let's say the Kli Sharas got chipped, or whatever, ein masakin oisim, you don't repair it. Sakin shenifgam, likewise, a knife that got chipped, ein mashchiz and oyas pigimasa, you don't smooth out and sharpen, the bump. Nishmetos, likewise, if the knife got detached from its handle, and you don't try to repair it and restore it. Abba Shol Eimer, he says, in fact, it was a story of a sakin mitarefes ha'iseh b'mikdash. It was a knife that was getting us into trouble. It was evidently made of softer, metal, and it kept on getting chipped, and it would bumpy, and it would ruin the karbanis. V'nimnu aleh kaihanim g'nazuah, the kaihanim, sort of ganged up, and they decided by consensus. They took a vote and decided to dispose of it. Tana Rabbanan. Okay, now we shift to the garments that the Kohanim wear. How do we conduct with them? Bigdei Kehuna noisen noisen maaseh machat. You don't make them maaseh machat. Rashi explains this to mean like today's tailors. You would sew up sections and then sew them together. You don't do it that way. You do it as one big weave, which is a more complex and elaborate system. Elamasa oirik. Shneimar, the pasuk says, Masi oirik. This galu. Suppose the begadim became sullied. Do we put them in the washing machine? No. Ein machapsen. Oisam. Loy beneser. You don't use detergent. Loy oil. Different types of detergent. Okay, so it sounds like no detergent, but you can use water, which is counterintuitive because water has lesser cleansing ability than detergent. Ha b'mayim. You mean to say with water machapsen you can launder them? No, of course not. That's not what the Brisa meant to say. Hachikamar hugu b'mayim. It's just relating to the level of sulliness. If hugu they got slightly stained b'mayim, which typically water is enough to just give it a little spot clean, then it doesn't disable the begadim. It's not a serious stain. Mechapsen oiser b'nesev oil can launder them using even detergent. That's not an issue. But hugul b'nesev oil. But suppose it's a serious stain which typically would require detergent to get rid of it, then it's over. Then you don't wash it at all. You can't use even water. It's just an expression meaning to say slight stain is okay, heavy stain is no good. Some say no, even if it's a slight stain that would only require water, there's no laundering. Why? We don't conduct ourselves in a manner fitting for anius. In the Beis Hamikdash is a makam ashiris of wealth. Tana Rabbanan. Okay, on the topic of the Bigdei Kehuna, so let's see some descriptive details of the begadim, especially the me'il. How was it constructed? Tana Rabbanan. Me'il kulei shel tcheles haya. The me'il, the cape that the Kohen Gadol would wear, was completely made of blue wool. Kulei shel tcheles haya shenemar vayas me'il ha'ifet klu tcheles. But what about the bottoms, the edges on bottom? Shulav ketzad. How would they construct the bottoms. The pasuk speaks about rimoinim, these pomegranate-shaped balls and bells. Ketzad, maybe tchelas, vargaman, v'telas shani. In contrast to the actual body of the cape, which was purely blue wool, the bottom was comprised of 3 colors: tchelas, blue; vargaman, purple; v'telas shani, and red. So you would take some threads of shizurim, spin all these 3 together, so you got a real thick thread comprised of 3 colors, and he would fashion them into these balls, like these pomegranates which have not yet sprung open. Rashi says after a while on the tree it sort of starts opening, so it's closed, these closed balls. Another descriptive term would be like a pom-pom. Ukumin kunois, like these balls, shall kansais, shibrashi tinekes, like these children's caps. Okay, so basically like a pom-pom. And then he would place a bell between 2 of these pom-poms, or maybe shivim v'shnayim zagen. He would bring 72 of these bells, shibahen shivim v'shnayim inbelin, in which there are 72 clappers. So a bell and a clapper go together, of course. V'toile bohen, or boy, and he would hang these 36 on the bottom of the front of the cape, and 36 on the bottom of the back side of the cape. 36 on this side, 36 on the other side. And as we explained, based on Rashi, it would be a bell between 2 pom-poms. So it would be rimoin, pom, etc. until you finish your 36. Rabbi Daisa, Aimer Meshum Rabbi Yehuda, he disagrees. It's not 72 in total. Actually, Shloshim V'Shisha Hayu, just 36 in total. Shmoyne Esrei Mitzadzeh, Ushmoyne Esrei Mitzadzeh, split 18 on either side. Amar Rab Inani Bar Sasain. Interestingly, Kamachlekes Khan, the same disagreement we have over here regarding the Me'il, if it's 72-36. Kach Machlekes Maris Negoim, likewise, when it comes to the total number of nega variations. There are all different types of negas. Tinge of red, tinge of this, right? So how many different variations do we have there? We have machlekes. Some say 72, and Rabbi Doisa ben Harkinas holds that it's only 36, as he holds over here by the Me'il. Interestingly, Tosis asks what's the connection between the Me'il and the negas. He says because the Me'il is mechaper, comes to be mechaper to atone for lashon hara, as we're going to see soon. So that's the connection. It atones for all these variations of lashon hara. It's not as we find in Mishnah in Negoim. How many were there? Myers Negoim. How many different types of shades and colors? Rabbi Doisa ben Hakris Omer Lamed Vav 36 in total. Kavi ben Amal Omer. He says Shiv Mishnayim 72. Okay, so in terms of the atonement abilities of the Bigdei Kehuna. Here goes. V'amari inani bar sasain, same name as before. Lama nismecha parshas karbonos leparshas bigdei kehuna. If you take a look in the Torah and Parshas Tzav, it begins discussing various karbonos. We speak about the chatas, the asham, the shlamim, and then it moves on to describe the begadim of the kahanim. What's the connection? What's the correlation? Lama nismecha parshas karbonos leparshas bigdei kehuna. Why were they stated next to each other? Let me teach you. Ma karbonis machaper, just like the karbonis have the ability to be machaper and averis, abidei kuna machaper, the begodim that the kohen wears, they have their own ability to cover for averis. As follows: each one has a different avera that he addresses. So the ksonis, the shirt, machaper is al shvichus dam, it's machaper on murder. Shanam avayishchatu sir isim, this was by the shvatim. Vayitbulus hakatonis bedam, they took the ksonis of Yosef and they dipped it into blood. So Rashi says, it's a hint, it's a remez, and the future. The kasenis will be mechaper on dam, and tvila, says Rashi, is lashon of kapara. Okay, we'll cover for it, we'll tone for it. Next, mechnasaim, the pants, mechaper on gilei arais, cover for gilei arais. Shem, as the pasuk says, vayselem mechnesich bad, fashion mechnasaim lechases, to cover, to address psar erva, the concept of arayis. Mitznefas, the hat, mechaper es al gasi yivrach, tones for haughtiness, as per its position high up on the head. Minayin, how do we know? Let the hat, which is something sitting on a high position, come and be mechaper v'yichaper al goiva, on haughtiness as well. Avneit, the kohen's belt, which was placed around his heart area, mechaper al hiraleh, but covers for improper thoughts that emanate from the heart. Heicha the isay, right? As per its location, where it's sitting on the heart. Choshen mechaper aladinin. The choshen mishpat atones for perverted judgments. Shnamar b'sisa choshen mishpat. Right? The choshen covers for the mishpat. Ephod the apron mechaper avetz gechavim. Shnamar, as the pasuk says, ein ephod the trafim. There's no ephod. Hence, the sin of trafim of avodah zarah surfaces, because when there is an ephod, it covers for it. The me'il, mechaper, covers for lashon hara, lashon hara. How do we know? Why lashon hara in specific? Amar Chanina, once again, we make that correlation between the me'il, which is yava yidava shebakoil, the me'il which jingles, generates sounds. Hubi mechaper will address v'chaper al koil on slander, which is expressions of sound. Akol hara, bad speech. V'tzitz mechaper al azus metzach, and finally we have the tzitz, the kodesh Hashem, a gold plate which was sitting on the Kohen Gadol's forehead. That's mechaper on al azus panam, on brazenness. We see the interesting thing that even for midas, not only for physical acts of transgression, but even for midas, deficient character traits, personal midas issues need kapara. Interestingly, the Rambam actually points out that it's even harder. Tshuva on a maisa is relatively easy to tshuva on midas because it's hard to define. It's very hard to change a person's inherent nature. But from this Gemara, we see how important it is to fashion one midas properly. We have to have kapara on goiva, on kaiva, kapara on azus metzach, right? Why is it tzitz appropriate for that? V'tzitz mechaper al azus metzach. V'tzitz ksiv, we find by the tzitz v'hay al metzach Aaron, who was sitting on the metzach. V'azus panam ksiv. By brazenness, we find a similar expression umeitzach, which is the forehead, isha zoy nahoylach. Eini. Now comes a question. We just stated that the me'il corresponds to, it addresses lashon hara. Eini, is that so? That lashon hara has a form of atonement by way of the me'il? V'amar Rishon ben Levi, shnei dvarim lo metzinu lehen kapara b'karbanos. The two sins. If we look around by the karbanos, we don't find any karbanos that address those sins. So how do they get kapara? Motzina lahen kapara makamacha. We find a different source of kapara for them. What are these two sins? Veiluhen shvichus damim v'lashon hara, murder and lashon hara. What is the process of kapara for these things? Shvichus damim egla rufa, right? The egla rufa, which is process when you find a victim on the road. So you have to bring the egla rufa to atone for that. With lashon hara, what addresses lashon hara? Mikteris, right? The incense in the Beis Hamikdash. How do we know this? Itaner of Chananya. Minay l'kteris. How do we know that kteris has the ability to mechaperes on lashon hara? Shenema veitin sakteris v'chaper la'am. This was after the machlekes of Korach, which Rashi explains involved lashon hara. So what stopped the plague? The kteris. V'tanit v'rabishmol al mak kteris mechaperes. What does kteris atone for? Al lashon hara. Why specifically kteris? He says because they have similar characteristics. Allow the let the kteris, which is something that comes discreetly. Rashi explains that the kteris was offered in the heichal when there was nobody there. Nobody can be there at the time. That was the halacha. So that will come v'chaper al masach hashay and atone for lashon hara, which is also something done, quietly, discreetly behind the person's back. So rather than the me'il, it's the kteris that takes care of lashon hara. Rather than the kisainas taking care of shvichas damim, it's the egla rufa. We have a double kasha here, a double contradiction. On the one hand, we have a kasha lashon hara, al lashon hara, and we also have a kasha shvichas damim, a shvichas damim. What atones for these things? Is it this or that? Says the Gemara. Let's first address shvichas damim. Shvichas damim like kasha, that can be answered like this. It depends on the circumstance. When do we say that the ksainas addresses murder? When you are aware of the identity of the murderer. So first of all, the murderer doesn't get addressed. He's not going to be absolved. We're not talking about absolving him. Rashi says we're just trying to protect its tzibur from culpability. Right? We know that not only is a person responsible for his deeds, his family, his community, Klal Yisrael in general at large, right? We're all connected and responsible for each other, especially if it's a community that could have stopped him, that could have influenced him. So in terms of that, the kapara is accomplished by the ksenis. The Egal Rufa is brought specifically in a case where you don't know who the murderer was. So you need a different type of system, a different type of kapara. Well, says the Gemara, in the first instance, you say we know who it was. Yediyah man katli. Right? We say, Hadi man katli, Hadi man katli. Well, if you know who it was, Hadi Yediyah man katli, if you know who the murderer was, Parkatalahu. Forget about trying to atone and just you have to punish him, have to kill him, right? And Rashi explains, and if they fail to implement that punishment, they will not have kapara. Rashi brings a pasuk, right? There's no kapara for the Klal Yisrael unless they properly address the murderer. Well, says the Gemara, we're talking where technically they couldn't do it. They know who he is, they know what he did, but Mezid didn't know he did it intentionally. But he wasn't warned. He wasn't warned properly. So there's a halachic, a procedural impediment to actually carrying out his punishment. So in that instance, even though he's walking around scot-free, but some atonement will be generated by the iksoinus, meaning in terms of the tzibur, to protect them from punishment. So that addresses the question of kapara and shvichas dam. Regarding the second question, who atones for lashon hara? Here we say it's the me'il, here we say it's the kteris. Depends. If it's a small scale, quiet lashon hara, which has not yet been publicized, right? Versus lashon hara, which he went public with. Like Habitzin, if it's a quiet, discreet lashon hara, okay, just on the wraps, then the Kteris comes as mechaper for that, because, like we said, it's davar shebechashai, which is mechaper on a low-key lashon hara. Habefarhesia. But if you went out and publicized it, then that's davar shebekoil. For that you need the me'il. Rashi says, farhesia is davar shebekoil, koil pamoinim, the bells, ringing bells. That is the antidote, and that is mechaper olav. Hadron lachem is be'ach makadosh. Okay, so we learned that the klisharis is makadosh, provided it's in its proper setting, the Beis Hamikdash, provided it's a functioning kli without holes, and it's filled with the shiur. What about the heap? That was a machlekes. We spoke about the kli had yavish, midas yavish only be mekadosh yavish, kli halach only be mekadosh lach, and Shmuel added. That's by the midas halach, but if it's a regular container for lach, it could also work for yavish, as we learned from the pasuk by the miluim shnei meleim soilis, that the mizrakim would also be mekadosh the minchas. We spoke about only using unblemished, clean begadim. If there's any issues, any dirtying, you switch it. Ein aniyus makam ashiras, right? Consistent with the setting of the Beis Hamikdash, makam ashir, makam of bracha, makam of royalty. We discussed the making of the me'il with the amount of bells that it had, 72, 36, and how each one of the other begadim is mechaper, just as the karbanis are mechaper. All the best to you, and that's l'achar.